It is the moment senior members of the cabinet have been waiting for. On Monday, the Brexit Cabinet will discuss the future economic partnership with the European Union. In other words, what kind of trade deal with the EU the UK wants. On Monday, the Brexit Cabinet will discuss the future economic partnership with the European Union. Remarkably, this will be the first time the top people in the government will have discussed this question properly. But those hoping for an answer to emerge from this meeting will be disappointed, as this paper's political editor revealed yesterday. This will just be the first of several discussions on the topic. One of those intimately involved in preparing for it tells me it will not be a definitive decision, more of a debate. Michael Gove, above, Liam Fox, David Davis and the new Defence Secretary Gavin Williamson favour the UK charting a more distinctive course after Brexit inside government. An unofficial deadline of mid-January has been set for working out a position agreed by the whole cabinet. The hope is this will give the government a chance to work out its negotiating strategy before talks proper start in March. As one figure working on this admits, we need some quality time to formulate a more polished product. Privately, senior figures in Downing Street admit that the government wasn't as prepared as it should have been for the first round of the Brexit talks. Chancellor Philip Hammond, Home Secretary Amber Rudd and Business Secretary Greg Clark all favour hugging the EU tight. They are keen not to repeat that mistake in this, their second, and more important, round of talks. On Monday, the inner cabinet will have a briefing from Theresa May's top Brexit official, Ollie Robbins. In a sign of how sensitive the discussions are, no papers are being circulated ahead of this meeting. But I understand that the briefing will concentrate on 3 buckets and what the UK should put in each. One bucket is for where the UK wants to do the same thing as the EU in the same way. One is for where the UK wants to achieve the same thing as the EU but in a different way. And one is for where the UK wants to do things completely differently. What I am told is off the table is what one source calls the Twilight Zone of Norway. This option would see the UK having to follow all EU rules despite having no say in making them. Prime Minister Theresa May hails moving into phase 2 of Brexit talks, but EU calls for further clarity, as Boris Johnson put it to Tory MPs this week. If the UK did this, then what's the point of leaving? But there is still a massive question about how much the UK should diverge from the EU. Chancellor Philip Hammond, Home Secretary Amber Rudd and Business Secretary Greg Clark all favour hugging the EU tight, while Johnson, Michael Gove, Liam Fox, David Davis and the new Defence Secretary Gavin Williamson favour the UK charting a more distinctive course. There are, though, hints of where consensus could be found. I understand that Johnson and Hammond have had private meetings to try to establish common ground. There appears to be agreement that the divergence will not be instant and will happen over time. One ally of Hammond tells me it will not be clear what kind of Brexit we have had for a decade. Donald Tusk praises PM's constructive efforts in progressing Brexit talks. I understand that Hammond's acceptance that there will be some divergence is reflected in the attitude of his department, the Treasury. I am informed it is now being collegiate and collaborative, and that wasn't true even 3 months ago. It is becoming clear that the EU would prefer to build up from the free trade deal with Canada, rather than down from the single market. It is also apparent that EU member states are, contrary to what has been said previously, prepared to soup up the Canada deal for Britain. This week the Belgians, normally one of the more hardline EU members, came out in favour of a Canada plus deal for the UK. But if Britain is to get a good trade deal, it must quickly work out what it wants. The fudge is fast reaching its expiry date. I'm wishing you a less than perfect Christmas, but it's not what you think Meghan Markle is. The fast-track royal to cheer up Britain this Christmas. We should negotiate a free trade deal in exchange for our divorce settlement. Brits deserve to know if Prince Philip cheated on the Queen. But not yet. We cannot allow safe spaces for far-right terrorists, and we need to combat it. Smug Tory rebels should be deselected for betraying both their PM and country. May has to embrace Brexit rebels. Theresa May needs to embrace the likes of Dominic Grieve or face more Brexit defeats. The government's defeat on the Brexit amendment this week was embarrassing. It showed the limits of Theresa May's authority. The question now is whether this rebellion leads to more or not. As one minister puts it, successful rebellions either increase the appetite for it or concentrate minds. At the top of government, they are consoling themselves with the thought that though they lost this vote, their defeat has revealed what really motivates some of the rebels. General Dominic Grieve and the former Minister Anna Soubry, above, have shown their true colours this week. One well-placed Tory tells me Dominic and Soubs, the leaders of the rebellion, the former Attorney General Dominic Grieve and the former Minister Anna Soubry, have shown their true colours this week. This isn't about meaningful amendments, but blocking Brexit. They hope this revelation will help them peel off some of the other rebels. They believe that most realise just how dangerous stopping or diluting beyond recognition Brexit would be. Rebel MP Heidi Allen says she doesn't trust government to deliver Brexit vote, but there are lessons the government should learn from this defeat. First of all, the whipping didn't get it right. The whips have a hard task, and it is not made easier by having a deputy chief whip, Esther McVey, who has never whipped before. It is also bizarre to have the best TV performer in the Tory party. She was a breakfast TV presenter before becoming an MP in a job where they are not allowed to go on the media. May also needs to show these rebels that there is a way back. When she reshuffles her team, she should make a point of bringing one of them back into the fold. Guests of Gavin Defence Secretary Gavin Williamson invited the Dub to bash what are Tory MPs talking about at Christmas parties? What the ambitious new Defence Secretary Gavin Williamson is up to.